I'd like to welcome you to our next session, which is titled The Muse Among the Margallas, Poetry Recitation in English. The poets in this session are Waqas Naeem, Azka Khan, Risham Amjad, Khalique, Syed Jarri Heydar, Hera Naguib, Mina Malik-Hussain, Mehvash Amin, Athar Tahir, Zaffar Kunial, and Salman Tarik Kureshi. The moderator for this session is Ilona Yusuf. This is going to be a 1-hour session. Ilona Yusuf is a poet and a printmaker. Ilona's poems have been published in book form, Picture This, 2001, and thereafter in literary journals in print and online in Pakistan and abroad. She freelances for several magazines writing on art and literature. She has worked as an editor for the Alhamra Literary Review, guest edited a special issue of Pakistani poetry in English for the Canadian journal Valim, and written essays on Pakistani poetry in English. She combines her prints and poems to make Artist Book, which can be viewed at ilonayusuf.blogspot.com. I'll hand over the mic to Ilona so she can begin the session now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Very brief introduction because and Dr. Tahir. Salman is from Lahore and he was a member of a Athar Tahir has won many awards. He's from Lahore. Recently won the Patras Bukhari Award, right? Zaffar Kunial here on my right. He's recently been English canon, and also, but it was probably as Athar America, East Europe. From the vernacular and transpose its thoughts into their English. So now, without waiting any longer, I am going to be a little greedy and read one poem, and then I will hand over the floor to the poets. Sorry, Salman. I'm going to read you a section of a poem. A lot of my new poems are divided into parts, and this is a third part of a poem called Two Voices and a Postcard. Roadblocks manned by bullet-vested policemen, piled sandbags, pointed barrels of protective guns, the high open jeeps of booted men in black shirts that say no fear, automatics resting easy, pointed down and out toward winding lines of cars and trucks, tight-packed delivery vans, smooth convoys swinging swiftly past a motorcycle couple, she in a suit that's a green field strewn with red roses, twirling a single long-stemmed red rose as he wheels round the roundabout, face lifted to the sky. At the roadblock in the car before me, a young girl in the back seat leans sideways with tender grace, touches her cheek to the face of the woman beside her. Now, our first poet is Waqas Naeem.
Use this one. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm not nervous. Okay. So the first poem I'm going to read it recently appeared in a magazine that we published from Karachi, and I wanted to include this because I hope and I believe that there are some aspiring poets in the audience today. And we just want to let you know that Pakistani poets who are writing in English, we are a tightly knit group and we help each other, and there are opportunities available to you. So this poem is called Courting Cowardice, and it goes like this. Is my blood paler than yours because you were brave to die through no fault of your own, but the aggressor's choice, real and ignored, like the warning label on your cigarette packet? We stumbled through this toxic maze someone else lay in our natural path, I with my timidity, and you with the contours of your quiet voice rising thick in the market square against injustice and bigotry, as if dissent would actually lead to freedom. Back then, our shared belief that there would yet be a return ticket to familiarity here somewhere seemed so much more potent than the threat of metal hugging your chest one day. We could have agreed on silence before there was so much of it. Before, just like breath, fire entered you in a congested back alley of the clothes market in the old city without appointment. Your early lawn perches uncollected, perforated. We could have lived through days of oppression without complaining. There is a lifetime to contemplate survival, or there isn't. Does it matter to you that I did not grieve when searching the sheets I could not find your April skin brushing against the small of my back, when I realized the weather didn't turn anymore with a flick of your cigarette? That I could never tell you again to stop dragging your feet on the pavement, that every summer would pass without you now? Does it matter to you that I did not mourn? My words, my thoughts held hostage to the night that remains unwashed, spilled like your blood in a narrow lane. I walk by it, looking the other way. Thank you. Do I go ahead with my second? Do I have time?
I didn't
All
check.
right, very quickly. So my second poem is from a recently published chapbook that explores poems about walking and commuting by foot in big cities. And this one's called Chappal. Every day, I stand at the edge of life, then jump in. My chappal is my armor. Together, mud and deaths and hurt we flee. We jump over debris, crush routines. We exit stifling conversations. And when we walk around a rat's carcass flattened on the road, we know it's a dirty game, survival. Like rust, it stains and stops. Slow down, it says. Green grass ahead or nothing at all. We leap over puddles from last night's shattered spirits, and my optic machinery shudders. Mother invention has washed over me from bearskin days to the times of leather and the age of plastic. And yet, stuck to the sole of this armor is the pain of the first human's foot cracked open on a jagged rock. This pain surfaces again and again, a perennial enemy, like an alarm set on repeat that announces my fragility without my chappal. Thank you.
Azka. Now, Azka Khan.
Thank you. I was very indecisive. I couldn't really decide which poem to read out to you, so I did what any sensible person would do in this situation, which is to conduct a Facebook poll. And this is what my Facebook friends thought I should read out for you. This is a poem which is from the chapbook that we put together in the poetry course in which he was a mentor. It's called Conversations About Love with the Therapist. 1. I was careful. I had love songs in one hand and mother's Love's a Myth they made to trick their way into women's pants in the other. From Chaucer to Siegel, imagine a grand conspiracy. And mother won the night I learned men and their appetites have little to do with love songs. Just how men are, my love, just how men are. I put my love songs away, read advice columns, burned all my fingers so he could come home to the smell of freshly baked cookies. He watched the same headlines all day and I heard love songs hum behind kitchen cupboards. No, I will love him. By God, I will. And he will learn to sing. 2. Aurat hi badalti hai. I let him rewrite me. The roof over my head, his, the child that came from me, his, the flour and brown sugar, his. Why must I belong to myself? I put books and bookish talk away, replace them with cricket and current affairs, rehearse every line, every movement, but he liked his girls softer here, firmer there, drew pictures to illustrate how wrong I was in having such countable ribs. Just how men are, my love. 3. I was careful. I had rebellion in one hand, subservience in the other. Do you know how hard it is to unlearn inheritance? I wrapped my revolution in chadar and char divari, ricocheted between one and the other, dawn till dusk. Nights he was hungry. I made to-do lists in my head and counted shadows, but I still heard just how men are. The silence of love songs over the sirens in my head, through clenched teeth, balled up fists, and hush. The roof over your head, his, your jagged little body, his. The night is dark enough without the curse of 40 angels. There are things I know I never set out to know. 4. I am careful, though some days I want blade in one hand, blood in the other, but only to tear out this tumor, latch deep, feeding inside me, swollen with age-old rhetoric. We can use fancy words here, doctor, but out in the real world, there are mothers telling bruised, scarred, burned, terrified daughters, go back to him. This is how they love. This is how your father loved. Okay, that's the end of that. But I'd really like to end on a more positive note because I feel that's very depressing. So I'm going to be reading out 2 very short parts from 2 different poems, which for ease of reference, I will call Plan A and Plan B. Plan A. My mother's sons failed her, or did mother fail her sons? With buckets full of father's tar, taught them to mend roads she once tried to rip apart. And so I start anew, my bleeding nails witness to how deep they buried her secret. Plan B. My warrior flower son, all that they set in stone we shall split open, bloom crimson through asphalt cracked with mother's rebellion. Thank you very much.
Okay, Risham, Amjad.
Hi everyone, I'm also very nervous because it's the first time I'm doing one of these things. And I was also part of the poetry course where Ilona was an instructor. This poem is not from that course, but I do believe that it's a product of what I learned from there. It's called Grown Girls. Mother and father had hopes when as a young child she loved words and books and order. She might be something. She got older, still loved words, but books made her uncomfortable, and school was only bearable because she knew of nothing else. Mother was with her as she struggled, trying to bring her old self back. She wanted to spend hours and hours doing schoolwork, but couldn't turn a single page. Father watched from afar as anxiety became familiar as breath and held her when she finally cracked and then broke further. Mother and father held her hands and supported her safe, young decisions because it was good practice for the future her to set herself boundaries. Mother and father didn't have many hopes anymore. She was grown, she was girl, and hopes weren't for her. They contented themselves with thoughts of resale. It was for the best. 4 years for herself, because otherwise people would talk, and talk was the only thing worse than wasting money on grown girls, going nowhere fast. Grown girls only got to bear the burden of hope if they were smart, talented with numbers, costs, and graphs, but she wasn't one for burden. Growing is hard business for the soul. Grown girls must conquer their dreams, lock them away in some warped version of a hope chest. Mother and father had hopes, but they forgot that once, long ago, before she knew herself, or was quite grown, she had hoped too. I have a second poem, which is, people say this is one of my, this is good, but I don't think so. I'm only reading it because my mom likes it. Okay, it's called Ancient Longings, and it's from the poetry course. There's a moment between destinations when infinity is a breath away, and I could travel on forever without hesitation. We used to be primitive, a wandering nation, chasing a new summer from plain to ancient plain. Now, it's become a single moment between destinations. Civilizing roots set down like an invasion, but some nomadic instant lingers, and so something primal calls, travel on forever without hesitation. I long for my world to become once more without expectation, back to the time when wandering was more than a moment between destinations. We used to leave our stories painted on walls, emblazoned so time could not hide that there was once a different way. To give cause to that moment between destinations, to know that I did once travel on forever without hesitation.
Haris.
Thank you, Ilona. I'll try to fit it in 4 minutes and 30 seconds because it's a slightly longer poem. It was difficult to make a selection. Thank you. It's a requiem for the dome of my school, the school I went to. It's titled The Dome. I'm not going to repeat any line.
You can.
Because that's what I do in Urdu Mushairas.
No, please do it. If you
I don't. The dome. In the bright shade of the old banyan tree, childhood in some always stays. HIPPOPOTAMUS. Hippopotamus. The first complex word I learned, and its spelling by heart. Hippopotamus. A wounded stray dog came to live on our roof. We used to bark at each other for hours unending. Ting, 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 the ice cream wala arrives, pushing the ice box fixed on a D-frame tricycle. I entered the dome. We lived near the zoo. The place was surrounded by a neem tree and a banyan. I used to climb up the trunk and hide in the thick branches of the banyan tree with some books, a bookmark, and a small book lamp charged by a pencil cell. The pursuit of the mega, and the delight in the minuscule. In the dim light of the charged book lamp, I would spin like a top and come falling down. Her lips were her weapons. Her lips were her weapons, tiptoe, tiptoe, stalking in fear behind a tick-tock, tick-tock stiletto. She was older, freer, all-encompassing, like the dome I entered, the dome of my school. They are gone, pulled down by greed and time, but both echoed then and both echo now. The way to my college was a painting. The sea was the frame. Granite stones, sandstones, mud colors. I wrote some poems, short enough to be ignored, long enough to be forgotten. The university was a lesser ideal. Down and out and about, scalars and vectors, young women and men, studying mechanics, celestial, static, solid and fluid. Turbines, generators, internal combustion, heat transfer and thermodynamics. Passion abbreviates cycles. In the bright shade of the foliage of passion, the shrubbery of desires appears. Interrupted and broken, I cried and cried. Love is an itch, sex an urge to scratch it. But the itch doesn't go. The oppressed, the wretched, the condemned, all itch. From the dome I enter the briar and bramble of art, to scratch, to fight, to prove. Well, you know, indeed, yes, indeed. The pretense of the artist, the eloquence of the mildly intelligent, the arrogance of the viewer, the listener, the reader, the horrible pain of pleasing inferior writers. But, and there is a big but, one must be wary of those who write, says Ezra Pound. They may write anything, anytime. The hissing of the pen on paper is the voice of an angel. Ghalib Sarir Khama Nawaye Sarosh hai. Ah, the dome and the Sarir, and the word was God. In the dim light of the feathers of the angel, time zones change, and they keep changing. Travel liberates. Cartographic dots swell and become places. The intense red color brings purple tones to my lips. Heartstrings are struck. New tunes flow out. Like water, like milk, like wine. New tunes resigned the old and bring it back the same time. Erect a wall around what is gone and then provoke me to peer over. Hippopotamus, the stray dog, her lips, mud colors, the lesser ideal, the shrubbery of desires, the itch and the urge to scratch it, the angel, the word, the time zones, the old banyan tree, the dome. Thank you.
Syed Jarri Heydar.
Second one is a new one. So the first one's called The Art of War. It's about family, and I hope mine forgives me. The Art of War. On the dinner table, we draw out lines, limits, and brings between the four of us, two progenitors and two progenies. Then one of us says the word, a battle cry, and we begin conversation, at first tumbling smoothly over trivial details, and then gaining speed from unuttered trivialities. Throats heavy, mouths hardly able to surround, the sharpened delicacy of appropriate insults and hardened notions tempted for decades and half-centuries in cradles and shared beds. We charge, knives and forks at the ready, cutting languid strokes into unwilling flesh. The chicken here is too bland, and that also is an accusation, an insinuation of hostile intent. The clutter of words is almost as thick as the air now layered with memoried pathos, and the painful recognition of familiar jawlines on these familiar faces contorting into familiar grief. We cannot fight anymore. The clock strikes 10. We must now make our peace before the next time one of us feels a shapeless lump forming in that chamber of the heart where each of us stores an ancient familial disease. Second one is dedicated, it's called Missing Persons, and it's dedicated to the 17,000 missing persons in Balochistan. These photographs betray a serious disposition. Despite the upturned whiskers and suppressed laughter, if you let them rot on the road for too long, the seriousness will wash out, the color will dissolve, and the cause will fade, like conversation at that precise moment when the joke has just been told. You look tired. Let me eke out a living for you on the streets. Let me donate all my pity till I have nothing left but tatters. Let me mark every wall with songs and phone numbers and names. Let me sleep on the cold road by your side. We will wake to watch our dreams eat the morning. A missing person is not a lost cause. He is inchoate matter, so let us mold him into seals and let us stamp each official document till Parliament cannot ignore the rabble any longer. Let us step into the sky like migratory birds so that every evening at Maghrib they can call out to us by our names and tell us it is time for another sun to set, pregnant with the promise of tomorrow, another migration from the captivity of memory into the empire of language. And this is the last one. This is called God of Green. Between the tick of today and the talk of tomorrow, that time when swallows and trees have only just arrived home and are almost quiet, for the sky is a confusing shade, locked between the emerald of leaves and the blue of eternal slumber. Hold yourself a while, erect your thoughts like columns in a temple, turn breathing into an art, and then whisper a prayer. Let each word drip like water into a well, slipping from the edges of your bucket, fill to the brim with doubt and despair, encircle the air twice, and with your hands held aloft, suspend the shawl of the night from each end of the sky. Banish the confusion in the absence of stars, and when all the world is a single color, whisper a prayer. Let each word take root like the oldest magnolia in your own yard that sets the sun behind it each evening. Let old birds be your sentinels and young ones be your kingdom. Send them out then at the crack of each dawn to sing the city back to life, to lull it to sleep when the day is done. When your eyes are aching, rake back the sweet arc of your neck and whisper a prayer. To the God of green, build an altar in the farthest corner of the mind. And from the thorns of the morning rose, make him a crown and an offering of Dionysus.
Hera Naguib.
Thank you, Ilona. So I will be reading out two poems. One is new and one is old. I'm fairly nervous about this new one, but that would be redundant to say. The first poem that I'm going to read is titled The Simplest Shape, and it's in sections, small sections, and I won't give much away, but it's a contemplation on the number 3, and it is also somewhat of a contemplation on the latest tragedy in the Peshawar Army Public School. The Simplest Shape. That afternoon, after my uncle died, a visitor came by, and Mama lined for him 3 cups of tea. And when I brought out food, she asked how many cupcakes. On a glass plate, I piled 3, looked at the pyramid saying, I don't know why, there's a kind of balance in 3s. This morning I say I love you, but for the 3rd time he doesn't say it back. This is a pattern, a thing you do, I insist, irritable. Plato saw 3 as symbolic of the triangle, the simplest spatial shape, and considered the world to have been built emerged from triangles. And so there was Anu, Baal, and Ea, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. There were 3 wishes, 3 fairies, 3 guesses, 3 little pigs, 3 bears, 3 billy goats. First sign of multitude in Arabic is 3. On December 16th, in the city of Peshawar's Army Public School, one of 9 gunmen lined up students by the blackboard and shot them one by one. If you're sons of army men, raise your hands, he said a number of times. That number was 3. So the second old poem that I'm going to read sort of deals with the idea of personal origin and rootedness. In a way, it was an experience in looking back and reclaiming the many different places that I feel I come from. So the title runs into the poem. I come from a long cry torn from a rainbird's throat on early summer mornings, from a desert whose air of fair constancy I breathe, afraid of thunder, graves, the sudden dead, afraid of anger off its leash, afraid of alleys in darkness, each rustle a fang on the long walk home. I come from a pack of girls who dragged a thin limber boy across the gravel, the payback to his big brother. No, I come from the crackle under his back, the dust of stones, from a long and white silence. I am weaned from the season's mid-riff, the stench of the ground dank with the city's monsoon, from the pull of its roots. At nights I run like its long canal, dried off its course but pent up in every native's dream, to each of my lovers who still teach me that love is but a wary, nameless thing. They come with ceremonies, wrists flamed with marigolds and hard-hit drums, then leave at blackouts from the back streets. Sometimes I'll wake up in their sewers, the choking smell of burnt coal, diffusing 4 ways, 4 places, all packed in a word as small as home. Thank you.
Mina Malik-Hussain.
It's my turn. Okay. This is all new work, so I'm in parts excited and in parts apprehensive, but you are my captive audience, so it's okay. I've been dwelling on my body for a while, and it's done many wonderful things, and I think I've only recently found words to describe my wonder at it, because I sometimes feel like I didn't have much to do with it. So these are 3 poems which are sort of loosely sequenced. The first one is a poem for Kay, who is my eldest. She's 6. Fish, you slipped from me and came, eyes tightly shut, into the world, looking affronted at this intrusion. Small mer-child, happily floating through watery days and salty nights, all as one in the darkness, sound muffled and distant as a whale cry, only to suddenly be pushed out on wave after hard wave and flung onto a cold and sterile shore, clenched and bemused as the tide withdrew, leaving you glistening and warm in my arms. The second one is N's song, who you might guess as my other child. So this one is for N. Dynamo, firecracker, you burst onto life with a hunting horn cry. You didn't ask for permission. I didn't push. You shot onto the field, arrow straight, high-browed child of dark-eyed intensity. You came at dawn at your heels, a small, fierce meteor. And the third one sort of loops the loop from them and comes back to me. So this is Body Song. Today I celebrate you, Today, I sing your song. I study this, your skin, the warp and weft of lines of silver, the mystery of veins pushing, small life knocking, the heft of your flesh as it turns and yields and closes in upon itself again. Always unknown, forever unknowable, fierce and silent, you. Body, I am your witness, as you have been mine. Boy or girl, people ask. I say boy or girl, they're all the best songs you have sung. Each time more illimitable, each time the stars and moon and sky, illimitable. Sinew strong in bones that knock against meteors and come back defiant, glowing with moon dust, mineral might. Body, you know me. You know the whisperings of my heart, the beat of my blood, the channels of my collar, the depth of my despair. You are my vessel. You carry everything. You will gather up the cloth of our journey and shroud us to goodbye. We will part. Perhaps we will meet again. I will know you by your song.
Mehvash, Amin.
I think all the poems, no? All the poems should be titled Nervous, I'm Nervous. But this one is called At the Traffic Lights. Is this the right distance?
Yes. I think it's pretty good.
Okay. The whole town is being turned over like a barren field. Patches of routed macadam turn their glistening underbellies to the sun, and men with pickaxes flush the roads out as if in search of treasure. I saw him at an intersection behind the ropes. He was a little way away from the others, not partaking of the nimbus of solidarity. His clothes were limned on his body with the sure strokes of familiarity, and sweat bubbled on his face like the malodorous skin of sour milk. As a cloud provided a moment's relief, he straightened and shook his head, but slightly, so that no useful energy should dissipate. The cloud lingered, prompting a supervisor to stroll over from the fatter shade of a tree and tell him to get on with it. He didn't have all day. Abruptly, a prayer gleamed in the inner seams of my heart like a fine needle. Then the lights changed and we moved on, leaving him to tangle with his supervisor in the once removed reality of the rear view mirror. He was no one's concern before and is no one's now. And a very short poem called Crows. Scavengers we call them, these crows or ravens, rising effrontly from out of the dark rim of mythology. Crow, pick clean with impunity. In a new world, your role has been redefined. You're not scavenger, but recycler, letting not a morsel escape to wanton wastefulness. Pick bare with grace.
Athar Tahir.
I'm going to read from my latest collection, which has just come out, and we'll be talking at length about it tomorrow. The first poem which I'd like to read is called Stone Letter. Before writing was stone, before wind carried words or scratches a message, stone could, by weight and touch, convey. If a pebble, spring water caressed smooth, perhaps happiness. If a weathered rock, then worry found angles. Can it feel just smooth and rough? What of fields in between? If picked from the seashore, speaking salty things, what then? Sometimes it tells nothing, sits in the palm and lets the full moon light it, or becomes a warming center in a closed hand. If it's the size of a pigeon's egg and as rounded, what does it hold that is waiting to break the shell? Okay. I'll just. Ilona just asked me to read something from the prize-winning book. The connection which I'm going to read from this book is actually seated in that. I did a series of sonnets, 14 lines and with proper rhyme scheme, which I call the Requiem sonnets. They were written and published in that book. And I've written 2 more Requiem sonnets since, which are now in this book. So there is a slight connection. The poem I'm going to read is called Attack. And although it was inspired by the army school massacre, it could be applicable to any attack on innocent people, no matter where they are in the world. Attack, 16th December 2014, Peshawar. Not 1, nor 2, but multiples of 10. Numbers numb with such fearful counting. Children, teachers, staff, to a maddening spray fall dead, injured, again and again. A few suicide-conditioned men smear walls with the exploding faith, and shrapnels fan them to a twisted heaven, and shells litter the rooms like surviving fear. 2 who stood up to protect innocence were set on fire. The 3rd shot in the head. How does one gather their resolve or tread the ground slippery but makes no sense? Words cannot hold this weight, but with what ease politicians sit and talk committees. There's one short poem, it's called Father's Farewell. This is for my son. Maternal grandparents, too frail to walk, are there sitting in the car, and uncles and aunts and gaggling cousins from both sides crowd to see you off east. Other families, even father's uncle in his starched winged turban, gathered 3 decades ago in a black and white goodbye to see me off west. As I hug and center you in God's protection, I'm your grandfather sending me off. And this collection has a large section on Japan. And it's called Japan Journal. And I use the haiku and tanka forms, which are traditional Japanese forms. And as you all know, Japanese and tanka are really the essence of poetry, because you have to boil everything down to just those 3 or 5 lines. Quintessence. Quintessence, that's the word. You just cannot play around with it. You have to bring those words to bear a lot more than you would in a longer poem. So this is a poem, and I happened to be there during the sakura season, when all the cherry blossoms, thousands and thousands of them in the cities and outside are in blossom. And people just, it's a festive time, and people are out celebrating and just having a good time with their families. So I was lucky to be there, and I wrote about 30 poems just on sakura itself, but I'll just read one in the haiku form, just 3 simple lines. Sakura 1. Each blossom, a kiss. Trees laden with spring longing, such abundance, but and then we have just one last poem, I think. I'll just read the fan tanka. You know, the fan is such an important part of Japanese culture, the hand fan. It's supported by geisha girls, and it's supported by the well-to-do elite members of the society, etc. Fan Tanka. It's a 5-line poem now. Fan Tanka. Tremulous fan hand agitates the unspoken, then folds to absence each slat till another time, when the unsaid is unsaid.
Let me just check this.
Quick. Okay. This is Life Tanka, again 5 lines. One by one we come. Extend point to contact lines. One by one we go, shrinking back to one dot self. Oh, the mundane geometry. Thank you.
Zaffar Kunial.
He'll speak. There is no dictionary for my father's language. His dialect, for a start, is difficult to name. Even this taxi driver who talks it lacks the knowledge. Some say it's Bahari, he'll speak. Others Patwari or Pahari Patwari, too earthy and scriptless to find a home in books. This mountain speech is a low language. Ours. No good. You must learn speak Urdu. I'm getting the runaround. Whatever it is, this talk, going back, did once have a script. Lunda, in the reign of the Buddhists. So, was Dad's speech some kind of Dogri? Is it Mirpuri, Kashmiri? The differences are lost on me. I'm told it's part way towards Punjabi, but what that tongue would call Twarda, Dad would agree was Tusanda, yours, truly. Though there are many dictionaries for the tongue I speak, it's the close-by things I'm lost to say. Things as pulsed and present as the back of this hand. Never mind stumbling towards some higher plane. And, either way, even at the rare moment I get towards, or, thank God, even getting to my point, I can't put into words where I've arrived. Thanks. So I was born in Birmingham to a Pakistani father and an English mother, a white English mother, and I grew up speaking English, and sometimes I would have trouble understanding my father's words, but also sometimes simple English words. And this is about the word us, which used to confuse me because I didn't know sometimes whether my mum was included when some of my father's relatives would say us, and vice versa sometimes too. So this looks, I mean, sometimes I thought my parents were oceans apart in a way. So this looks at the word us as a space that holds wide waters. Us. If you ask me, us takes in undulations. Each wave in the sea, all insides compressed, as if from one coast you could reach out to the next. And maybe it's a Midlands thing, but when I was young, us equally meant me, says the one. Or you, tell us where you're from. And the way football fans share the one fate. I, being one, am Liverpool, no less, cresting the Mexican wave of we and us, a shore-like state, two places at once, God knows what's in it. And at opposite ends, my heart sunk at separations of us. When it comes to us, colour me unsure. Something in me or it has failed the course. I'd love to think I could stretch to it, us, but the waves therein are too wide for words. I hope you get here where I'm coming from. I hope you're with me on this, between love and loss, where I'd give myself away, stranded as if the universe pulls on one stress, us. I hope from here on I can say it, and though far-fetched, it won't be too far wrong. I'll just finish with one more. This is about another very long and complicated English word. This is the word the. And I know that some... oh, here we go. The word is the. That's what that phone call is about to tell you. So the word. I couldn't tell you now what possessed me to shut summer out and stay in my room, or at least attempt to, in bed mostly. It's my dad, standing in the doorframe, not entering, but pausing to shape advice that keeps coming back. Whatever is matter must enjoy the life. He pronounced this twice, and me, I heard wrongness in putting a the before life. In two minds, ashamed, aware that I knew better, though was stuck inside while the sun was out, that I'm native here in a halfway house, like that sticking word, that definite article, half right, half wrong, still present between enjoy and life.
Now we have our last poet, Salman Tarik Kureshi from Karachi.
I'm glad you qualified corrected the from Karachi. Yes, I was born in Lahore.
Because the rest of us are kind of
I was born in Lahore.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But I spent 45 years of my life now in Karachi.
Well, then you're a Karachian. It's like I was in Lahore.
I agree.
Right? But I spend most of my life here now.
I agree. Okay, I've selected two poems. One is an older one is a very new one. And the voices are quite different in both. This one is called Plateau. Megaton flare of sun, ungentled by cloud or leafy shade, could bake a man's shadow into the rock. Yet such as these, black ringleted and watchful-eyed, who pitch slowly past on camel-back, wander this plateau. Legatees of no fecund river god, they glean their own migrant furrows. Their women stride beside them, children and dogs leaping around, their course advances between sand heaps and seasons. They shoulder through winter winds that score the crags with fangs of frost, that wither green stems shred leaf seed, leaving rock and the sand bared to summer's solar blows. Beside their camels' plodding feet, wiry shrubs, tough as they, seek interstices for roots. A rope-thin jackal skulks nearby, and a hawk wheels in flight and climbs away. And this is a very different one. It's more recent, more inward, I think. It's called Things Said and Unsaid. organ vibrato of wind in the pines, and rain drumming on a tin roof. Not yet loud, pianissimo, but becoming louder, punctuating and then drowning out the things said and things unsaid. Confidences beneath a red silk quilt. The small boy clings to warmth. Mother, will it be all right? When will it be all right? Fingers pushing back a lock of hair, stroking a young brow. The wind brays in the pines. Among the eaves, a drenched raven thumps its sodden wings. And the rain booms down. Mother, is it safe here? Safe? Where no jackals skulk, nor vipers strike drop-jawed, nor the whiplash tails of scorpions thrust poisoned barbs into unguarded ankles? There are things said and things left unsaid as sheets are tucked around the sleeping boy. And the weasel shriek of the wind in the pines careens among the timbers of the roof. Sheets of black rain sweep across inky slopes, polish sodden boulders. The raindrops' blows crack open the carapace of a hungry spider that skittered across the grass to its destroyed web. And yes, mothers do leave the child's room. Mothers do go away. Far away, mother? So far away? Never to return. The boy's eyes, lidless in the dark, anticipate the things seen, the things unseen, still to be imagined, unimagined. And the thousand fists of rain hammering on the tin roof, and the wolf howl of the wind in the pines. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Do we have time? Do we have time?
We have a minute.
We have a minute. We have a minute.
Does anybody want to say anything? Sure.
This has been a lovely evening for all of us, I'm sure. I speak for everyone. But I'd like to respond to the young lady who talked about being a man. She talked about, and this is just how men are. And please forgive me, it's not my poem, but I thought it's very apt at this moment. And it goes like this. She neither turned away, nor did she close the door, nor did she speak harsh words, but looked at him, who was her love before, as if he were an ordinary man. As if he were an ordinary man. Bharathari, about 1400 years ago.